Hello, my name is Justin Bright. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program version 1.8.1 in my Next Small Step RP-1 career mode playthrough. And we have done some work in getting a Gemini mission put together. I have indeed finally figured out that Agena target vehicles were not just for practicing docking, they were also for boosting orbits. And I feel like I recorded these not really realizing that that was kind of the purpose of all Agena target vehicles. But in any case, that is kind of one of the missions that we are going to get to, where I feel very clever for having come up with this idea all by myself. So let's get to it, shall we? All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, ignition. And we have liftoff of the Agena target vehicle, which is going to allow us to do some really cool stuff. So we are skipping ahead basically to Gemini 8, where we are going to be doing rendezvous and docking for the very first time, and we have the contracts to prove it. We are also going to be doing EVA, which is, a whole nother thing. That was the first EVA, of course, was Alexei Leonov, a Soviet cosmonaut. But not too long after that, Ed White was the first American spacewalk, and that was Gemini 4. So we're doing a little bit of a combination of Gemini 4 and Gemini 8 because there is absolutely no reason that we can't do both things at once. So to start things off, and we have kind of a multi-part profile, and we are going to be testing something that is in addition to all of the normal contract and science experiment type things that we are doing. I have my own objective as well, as we are launching up into a 400-kilometer circular orbit with our Tela Agena D spacecraft. So one thing that I really am interested in doing is I'm interested in pushing the Gemini program further than it actually went, and dipping into the well of advanced Gemini ideas that were put together by NASA. They ended up being superseded. Oh no! Permanent shutdown! No! Kick off. Oh, maybe we can recover. Man, with the gimbal and the verniers, we are trying really hard to recover. We had a last-minute shutdown that is going to dramatically reduce the capability of our rocket, but we seem to have recovered. Ooh, man, that was not great. But yeah, we've recovered okay with just a massive loss of performance. But just reset our guidance at this point just to make sure that we're doing things correctly, because things have changed from when it last looked. Whew, okay. We're okay. Wow, okay. So anyways, the one of the big right, Advanced Gemini. God, I'm so discombobulated now. Advanced Gemini was a big bucket of programs that were intended to advance basically build on what Gemini had done and go further, like towards the ambition of eventually landing on the moon, putting people around the moon, all of those sorts of things. Space laboratories, like Gemini had all kinds of ambitious ideas. However, they ended up being superseded by Apollo, and then we ended up using the more advanced Apollo spacecraft and for all of those things. So instead of the manned orbiting laboratory that would have used the Gemini, we ended up with Skylab, which was put up by a Saturn V and serviced by Apollo spacecraft. One of those really interesting things is the translunar Gemini missions, which were able to put a Gemini spacecraft out and around the moon and back by using a trans stage, which looked a little bit like the Agena up on the top, where it had like kind of this front half here, and then it expanded out to a larger service module that was going to be able to have the Delta V to push it out around the moon and back. And since it's not one or the other for us, it's not Gemini or Apollo for us, we don't have to like shift money from one program to another. We can do both things, and we will do both things. So I definitely have plans on moving on to Apollo at some point. However, RP-1 definitely incentivizes getting yourself out there faster, using lower level technology to accomplish objectives that you would not otherwise be able to accomplish, and this is no exception. So we are just about to cut off our main booster stage, and we are preparing now for a brief coast that is going to bring us up to a good orbital insertion altitude. Hopefully. I have had a lot of trouble with coasts and MechJeb before, so I'm just crossing my fingers that everything will work just fine. So anyways, yeah, RP-1 really encourages that idea of like, okay, let's move things along a little bit faster so that you can do things with a little bit lower level technology and still manage to do cool stuff. One thing I need to make sure that I do... Actually, you know what? I'm just going to disengage this autopilot and I'm going to do this myself because I'm nervous about it using up extra things that I don't need it to use up. So let's go ahead and open a maneuver plan, and we are just going to circularize at the next apogee. Because in keeping with that idea that we want to be using... oh, we can't circularize at all, huh? Do you think that... Oh, because it's not on this stage? There you go. Don't be weird about this, man. But I am going to have... next node. Okay, this is stressing me out. But yeah, in keeping with RP-1's drive to push you forward faster and earlier, that is what we're going to do. We're going to do some advanced Gemini concepts, one of which is the trans stage. And this then is going to be not just a test of rendezvous and docking, but it is going to be a test of using the Gemini, or using the Agena for propulsion. We are going to... Although, to be fair, this was actually something that was done. So, Gemini 11 also was, you know, a real mission that did boost a Gemini spacecraft up to a different orbit, and so that is exactly what we're doing. We're doing Gemini 4, 8, and 11 all in one mission. Because I had incorrectly assumed that this was not something that was done. It is absolutely something that was done. But anyways, this is still in preparation for something that was not done, which I don't think there was ever a trans stage. I don't think there was ever a trans stage that was actually built and used. So this is my own testing using the Gemini 11 concept to test how a trans stage might work, because this is exactly the same kind of profile that we would use in going to the moon, right? So we would put something like this Agena docking module, or this Agena target vehicle, into orbit, and then we would use that service module to push the Gemini out around the moon. And that is exactly the kind of thing that we are looking for. So, Gemini 4, 8, and 11 are all go at once. And I am using all the standard Gemini Agena target vehicle stuff. So we have the special docking port, which I'll be figuring out what that's about when we actually get a little bit closer. But one of the fun things is that it actually has all of these little indicators that actually do work. Like, they actually show you, they light up when the SAS is on, and they light up when the RCS is on, which is kind of a fun thing. And that's something that was in real life as well, where they actually had like a series of external indicators that the Gemini astronauts could look out the window and see, so that they could interface with the Agena target vehicle. And I'm using the Agena equipment rack because it has RCS built in and extra little thrusters built in to do some additional orbital maneuvering if needed, just as kind of a backup. So there we go. We are in a good orbit. We still have 3,200 meters per second of delta V for a second burn, but only one more burn. So we're only going to be able to do half of. We're only going to be able to change one part of the Gemini's orbit. And then the Gemini is going to have to do its own thing after that. Weird, that's ticking down. But we are in the first orbit of the orbital flight and maneuvers with 2+ crew. We're in the first orbit of that, and that is what we're going to be doing. Is we're going to be sending up the Gemini to meet up with this craft, and then we'll be changing our orbit after another 2 days. So yeah, that is that. Now it's time to go launch our Gemini. All right, so I think time warp shenanigans has screwed me up completely. Because I don't have any pilots that are ready, even though I had very specifically set this up so that they should finish their mission training time right around the time that this had launched. But things have fallen off, and I think that's because I'm pretty sure that's because I had been doing a lot of time warp testing in mission sims and so forth in the background. So that's on me. So I think that Agena target vehicle is just going to kind of sit there, and I'm going to have to launch another one when this training is completed, because it only has battery for 10 days. And it does indeed only have battery. It doesn't have any other way of generating power, because I did not anticipate needing it to sit in orbit for 3 months. Sigh. Well, that's on me. Yeah, so these two will be done. Valerie Dunn and Vicky Chambers will be finished in about 60 days with their training, and then Johnny Flores and Lisa Kim will be finished with their training in about 100 days. So that is just how long it's going to be before we can run this mission, so I will have to refly that Agena one more time. Which is a shame, but that's also, I guess that's fine. How much longer do I have on these contracts? 126 days. Well, so long as I don't fly the 92 days. Yeah, yeah, this is not great, but this should be okay. I shouldn't have to rush build anything. So we just need to rebuild another one of those Agena target vehicles and launch that, which we will do. Also, real quick, before you all write me comments and message me letting me know that I was incorrect, I was incorrect about the trans stage. There was like 40 of them got flown. They were 47 were flown. It was actually in upper stage for the Titan III rocket, and not just its own special Gemini thing. So there was never a trans stage flown with a Gemini, but that was something that was, but it was something that they had among a bunch of other possibilities. It was one of the things that they planned to use as an advanced Gemini service module. Among a bunch of other things, like they had like a double Agena, they had a couple different Centaur types, that sort of thing. Yeah, so sorry I was incorrect about that. I try not to talk out of my ass too much, but I also have not done enough research on Gemini. Obviously, this means I need to sit down and do some reading before I really get into this. All right, so just wrapping up my Agena Target Vehicle 2's orbital insertion burn. One thing I wanted to point out that I think is kind of fun is that MacLeod has a Delta V expended set of tags in the recorder that you have to kind of put together in a custom window, but it shows you how much Delta V you've expended and how much you lost to various things like steering, gravity, and drag, which I think is pretty fun and a pretty useful thing when you are trying to improve your rockets. So yeah, we are in orbit now with the Agena target vehicle. I just kind of took the other one out, like it's dead. So it's I can actually just go ahead and make sure that is no longer shown. Oh, the vessel. Oh wait, I have to. The button's down there, but whatever. Yeah, hidden, no hidden vessels. So yeah, that one's gone and dead because that's what happens when you run out of battery. But this one should last for another 9 days. Yep, 9 days or so, which is going to be at least as long as the mission that we have planned here. So let's get to the other half of it. There we go. All right, so I just want to be able to see Valerie Dunn and Vicky Chambers' faces as we begin our launch of the Gemini spacecraft into an orbit that is hopefully going to chase and capture the Agena target vehicle. So I am locked and loaded on that. Let's go ahead and open up our ascent guidance. PVG. I'm not sure why it was on that. I guess because this is a brand new rocket, it doesn't really know. I haven't set up the ascent guidance for it yet. So, yeah, we want to launch. Curious, what happens if I say launch into plane of target? Okay, that would have us wait an entire day on the pad until we came back around exactly into the plane of target. But I think that we can just chase after it a little bit. If we just go now, it only launched like 10 minutes ago, so it should be okay, right? And it's a little bit ahead of us. So what I think we're going to do is we are going to launch into a 250 kilometer circular orbit and use that to kind of chase after this craft here. Yeah, because it's already a good quarter of the way around the planet by now, and it's going to just be, it's just going a little bit, going to be going even further. So let's let's try to target its orbit. So let's try 150 by 400, I think. And then, yeah, we're going to just chase after it, basically. So let's engage the autopilot. 3, 2, 1, ignition. And liftoff of the mighty Titan II. We are on our way up, chasing after our Agena target vehicle in a test of a variety of missions. Gemini 4, Gemini 8, Gemini 11, all at once. We are trying to really... Uh-oh. I have fucked up. The thing that trips me up all the time is the support hot staging button. So a little bit of a rewind, but we are now heading up. Let's try one more time. 3, 2, 1, ignition. And we are off, this time for real. And this thing just jumps off the pad. Look at this monster. Yeah, so we are on our way up, and one thing that was mentioned to me is that there's no launch escape system on the Gemini spacecraft by default. Because in real life it had a set of horrifying, what do you call it? Which program? This is not pitching over all that fast. This should probably be pitching over a lot faster than it is. There we go. With how much thrust this thing has, this definitely should be pitching over pretty quickly. Anyways, the Gemini does not actually have a launch escape system. It has a let's try 0. Yeah, I like having the belly down as we're rising up. They actually, in real life, they had a pair of ejector seats. So like they would blow the hatch, and then the astronauts would actually be just like shot out the side and with parachutes attached to escape from an exploding rocket, which sounds just horrifying and a little bit Russian, if you ask me. But that's how they actually did that. That's why there's no big launch escape system up on top, and they definitely went back to a launch escape system when they went to Apollo. But thankfully, I don't think it ever needed to be used outside of any testing that they may have done. So yeah, I don't know how that operates, and I don't think there's anything that we can do as far as launch escape on this vessel, other than just like shutting down the engines and separating ourselves manually and all that sort of thing. So that's what I would plan to do if something were to happen. I don't have an abort hotkey set up quite yet. I'm not sure what I would put there, but probably just detaching this and kicking on like the retro motors would be one way to try to get away from a spacecraft that was having an issue. But we have main stage cutoff, hot staging the LR-91 upper stage, and we are on our way towards insertion burn into low Earth orbit. And we are chasing, indeed, after this spacecraft here. So I am trying to get into a 400 kilometer by 150 kilometer orbit that will, fingers crossed, allow us to catch up with our Agena target vehicle. We have a while yet to go until this finishes that burn, so we're just going to time warp a little bit. Valerie Dunn, Vicky Chambers seem to be doing pretty darn well so far. No issues detected as of yet. Totally nominal launch, no issues with the engines so far. Pretty happy about that, given that this is the second launch of each of these. All right, just 10 seconds until second stage cut off. Our apogee is rising rapidly. Oh, I can't actually turn that off now that I think about it. And there we go. Now we actually start to see our see the ways in which our orbit is similar to the other orbit. It sees where our capture is and so forth. Yeah, I can still do that. But can I actually? Oh, look at that. That's cool. I can turn off all the other satellites, thank goodness, so that I can actually see. Oops, lost it. Boop. And it still appears, which is nice. Yeah, so it looks like we are underway. We are chasing. Looks like our rendezvous is going to be over here on the nighttime side. Not what I would have planned for myself, but it's not that big of a deal, I don't think. Ambient lighting will save us all. So let's see about getting us a little bit closer, because our first step on this mission is to get to just get to that spacecraft and into a circular orbit around it with it. So just by the very nature of Rendezvous, we are going to get into the first orbit of our contract. Although we do have set a record of 2 crew, which gets us a little bit of money, which is great. I like the way Precise Node works in every way except for the fact that it doesn't have a plus-minus orbit button, which is a bummer. So we're going to have to grab the maneuver node editor from MacLeod for that. Plus, 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 plus. Okay, so it looks like about 3 orbits from now, we will be pretty darn close. So this looks pretty good. And we do have the Delta V, I think, to make that happen. Oh, that's just the leftover. All right, so that's all ready, and we can stage off our booster and the nose cone fairing, which covered up the nose docking mechanism. So yeah, there we go. We have the Gemini spacecraft is free and on its way, flying off towards nothing at the moment, but we are heading in the general direction of the Agena target vehicle. Yeah, so we'll meet it the first time over here in the darkness, but I'd like to plan for a light side rendezvous, which would be there-ish. So let's see what we can do to adjust this to be a little bit closer. All right, so I'll admit that I cheated a little bit and used the rendezvous planner because I was just struggling with the ability to get this quite right. So I did do the intercept, which is going to get us a nice close pass of 0.8 kilometers. I had to adjust this just a little bit with a relative speed of 283 meters per second, which I will be able to do with the... I should be able to do with either spacecraft. So I could use some of the Delta V on this to get it, to make sure that we can get into that orbit, but I also am trying to make the consideration of being able to get back home, because one of the things we're going to do is we're going to push ourselves up into a higher orbit with a... well, the second orbit has a okay, so I can work this out. So yeah, I'm going to be able to make this burn completely with the Gemini and then do the rendezvous that way. So that is what we will plan to do for now. But remember, we do have some extra stuff on the Gemini, on the Agena, that we will talk about that can help us out if we need it. So we have 8 hours of orbiting ready to go before we need to do that burn. So it's time to have our astronauts settle in and get ready to do some science. So let's take a look at what our spacecraft is and has and all of that. So we've got Valerie Dunn, Vicky Chambers. They're doing fine, 0% problems at the moment, which is very nice. Transmitting 1 file because we are in fact doing some science even as we speak. So we have a couple different experiments that the crew are working on right now. They are doing in-flight work tolerance, which just requires them to see if they can like manipulate things in space. So they're actually like pulling on like bungee cords and things like that to see how that works while they are at orbital altitudes, or in microgravity specifically. We have, oh, look at that. That's actually been added on now that I've gotten the research done. They are evaluating food to see what is edible and what's not. See what they think about that. And they are working on crew reports, obviously, whenever they get to new biomes, although most of that has already been done with X-Planes and Project Mercury. And finally, orbital maneuvering is something that I choose to believe that's what the little puffs of RCS are, is them performing this experiment, but it's not. But yeah, so then you see all of the processes that are happening on here. So we have the fuel cells that are running, which is giving us a good amount of power, but not enough, it looks like. Why is that the case? Because we should be getting 2.2 per second of electric charge. We are full on water, and that means that we are not actually... I thought I emptied part of this, but I guess it must have refilled automatically. So when you have too much of a thing, like if you have too much water, then it will absolutely not perform the process. So we can actually dump water, and see I've just toggled dump water. So the extra water that is created by the process of running these fuel cells, of turning liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen into electricity, I'm just dumping that overboard instead of keeping it, because they are not drinking it fast enough for that to matter, and that allows the process to run and actually get us the electricity that we so desperately need to survive. Yep, so you can see electric charge is now perpetual. They are getting 2.2 per second, and then everything else is completely secondary. But the avionics is eating up the vast majority of it, because avionics for actual crewed vessel is pretty hefty indeed. We have 10 days of food, 14 days of water, 10 days of oxygen, and that does include the fuel cell adding a whole bunch of water to the system so we can drink that. So that allows us to basically plan for much longer missions with much smaller amounts of liquid water on board. We have lithium hydroxide for the carbon dioxide scrubber. We have that should work for about 17 days. And then we have 10 days of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen for the fuel cell. But that is likely to run out earlier than later, because I did put 50 full layers of MLI around the equipment module to make sure that it lasted as long as possible. So we have 0 boil-off loss at the moment, but that number is likely to creep up. So we should, I think, probably either point the butt at the sun or away from the sun. I'm not sure which one would be better. I put the sun up. That's increasing the heat penetration. Nope, that's decreasing the wall temperature pretty dramatically, actually. I don't know if it actually models this reflective gold material reflecting sunlight and being less it's the heat penetration is going up, but the wall temperature is coming down. So yeah, hopefully that stabilizes and does not cause any trouble. The alternative would be to point the crew's windows directly at the sun, which I really don't love. So yeah, that is that. Hopefully this is helpful and maintains the liquid hydrogen and oxygen, but some boil off is expected. This mission I'm only planning to last for a week, so I'm hoping that we don't get more than 30% boil off over the time that we have. They are not super comfortable because they have not alone and can call home, but they don't have a panorama, they don't have plants, they don't have exercise or firm ground. And we do not have EVAs available. Oh no! Oh, that's right. So you actually have to have nitrogen to have to be able to EVA, because it assumes the ability to use those little jet packs to fly around, and those always use nitrogen and nothing else. No other monopropellants are safe enough for astronauts to use than nitrogen. So I didn't pack any nitrogen, and so that docking mission has failed, and so I might actually fail that mission entirely. I don't remember how many days left I have that one. Hopefully it's more than just a few. So yeah, that is something that we are not going to be able to do. So we have lost Gemini 8 from that, from the rotation, but that's, or no, not 8. We're not doing Gemini 4, the EVA. So that will have to be a later mission. But I've got another one of these building even as we speak. Yeah, so we do have that coming, and hopefully that will be able to accomplish the EVA mission. But in any case, that is a brief synopsis of these things. So our CO2 is fine, pressure is fine. We do not have any radiation shielding because we will be staying underneath the Van Allen belts the entire time, hopefully. Living space is pretty cramped, obviously, but it is at least a shirt sleeves environment, which is very handy for not going completely bonkers. So yeah, we are running all of our things. When I planned this mission, we did not have the LOX-to-GOX converter, which would turn liquid oxygen into gaseous oxygen, and so I instead just packed on as much oxygen as I needed. So this was in a tech node that I hadn't unlocked quite yet. So yeah, there we go. That is that. So now it's time for them to get to work on their science experiments, and then we will see them in about 8 hours when it's time to make our burn towards the Agena target vehicle. All right, so we are just coming up on our burn now. It's on the dark side of the planet. So we are firing of these 4 little Gemini thrusters that don't have a failure rate. They're just little monopropellant thrusters. They're pretty darn weak, pretty darn underpowered. I switched to the 4 thruster version of the equipment module because I just needed it to not be 1500 seconds of burn time that I'm wading through. So it's a little bit less efficient, I suppose, and perhaps ahistoric, but I also don't care. So we are on our way up. Just another 10 seconds or so of maybe not 10 seconds, but we're another little bit of burn time left before we get up into our rendezvous trajectory. So yeah, this is a really cool thing. Like, I'm really excited to finally be moving forward with our manned spaceflight program. Oh yeah, you can actually hear from in here the little engines firing. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to be finally working through this and doing these missions, because they're a ton of fun, and they're also going to be a ton of money that is going to really let me do all sorts of fun things with my program. And we just happen to be having a whole bunch of firsts with a bunch of female astronauts, which is great. I think Johnny Flores is the only male that I have in my space program right now, and he's going to retire next year, I think, unless we get him on some cool missions. So hopefully we'll get him some cool missions. But you can see our separation at closest approach is reducing dramatically as we finish up this burn, getting closer and closer until we... Oh, getting worse. Okay. So now we're going to just use, I think, should be able to use RCS to fine-tune this to get our separation as close as possible. Okay, 2.78 kilometers is not like super great. There we go. That brings it in a little bit closer. Okay, one more correction burn that is going to bring us down from 2.6 kilometer separation down to a 0.2 kilometer separation, and still leave us enough delta V to match our velocities once we get there. So let's go ahead and warp around to that. So far, everything else looks fine. Everything is going pretty well. They're pretty happy. 1% stressed, which, like, I totally feel that. Comfort's good. No EVAs. Yep, everything else seems to be going fine. They've sent back a whole bunch of science. We have 62 credits worth of science that they have accomplished in the time that we have been waiting for this first part of the orbit. And luckily, we've actually gotten into a good orbit right to begin with. So even our first orbit, with our high apogee and low perigee, has allowed us to begin solving this first part of the contract, which is 2 days in orbit with an apogee between 375 and 575 kilometers and a perigee of 150 kilometers. But then we just need to finish that up, and then we can move up to our final destination orbit that is very high, which is indeed very similar to Gemini 11's mission, where the Agena pushed it up into a higher orbit on its way. Okay, so that burn was complete, and it did not do what it said it was going to do pretty much at all. Not super stoked about that, I'll be honest. I'm just burning RCS to bring down our separation at closest approach as low as possible. All right, it's letting me bring it all the way down, so I'm just going to bring it down as far as it'll let me go, pretty much. Like about 150 meters is what I would love to have for our final rendezvous. And perfect. All right, so let's do that. So we are going to meet up with that in just 3 more minutes, and you can actually see it coming. So let's go ahead and point ourselves along the relative velocity vector, because we need to match velocities at closest approach, and that is going to take a long time. That's about a 10-minute burn. Yeah, almost a 10-minute burn to do that, because this thing is very, very slow. So we will want to, well, just execute that node, I suppose. Oh yeah, it's actually starting right now, because it's going to be flying towards us very, very soon. It's going to be intercepting us in about 3 minutes, so we want to be slow when we get there. And we're 144 meter separation at closest approach, so hopefully we will not actually impact the darn thing when we are coming by. All right, we are approaching now. It is just 10 seconds away, and we are still a pretty long way from halting, so we are probably going to have to use the Agena to finish off its part of the burn as well. Choom! All right, we'll see you, friend. Yeah, that's not great. Gemini velocity. And now we're going to see what the Agena has to offer. So I'm going to shut down the main engine. We're going to fire up the secondary propulsion systems, which have a whole bunch of burns. 20 ignitions remaining on that. And I am just firing up and burning towards that to hopefully reduce our relative velocity a little bit. Because I should maybe be able to still make this, although we're far enough away now that I may have missed this chance entirely. Okay, I think I planned this badly enough that we have lost the orbit on this attempt, so I'm going to probably switch over to the probably just going to switch over to the Agena, and then we will see what we can do from there as far as making this orbit a little bit later on, because I think just trying to push directly towards it at this point is not going to help. So we still have a good amount of delta V on this, but then so does the Agena target vehicle, so let's switch over to that and see about making this rendezvous. Yep, so one of the things that they dealt with in the Gemini program was that intercepting and rendezvousing with another spacecraft did not work the way that they quite thought it did. So it was actually very difficult to, like, if this thing shot past, like, it would be, you know, your initial inclination to just rush after it and then just go get it. That should work. That should, you know, if we just push towards it, we should be able to chase it and meet up, right? But that's not quite how that works, as we all know as KSP players. So what we have done instead is I have set up a rendezvous that is going to end up being right back here once again. So we are just going to warp around, and our orbits are different enough that we're not quite going to make it there, but we are going to be getting very, very close. All right, so just getting closer, making tiny adjustments to our orbit to try to intercept the Gemini that is honestly probably not that far from us. I'm not sure where exactly it is, but... Okay, I'm not sure why the game thought that was helpful, but it was not. So I'd always wondered what the secondary propulsion systems were for the Agena spacecraft, and now I know exactly what that's for, because this is kind of saving my butt with all the ignitions and tiny amounts of thrust that is allowing us to manipulate our orbit just so that we can get a nice, tight separation once again from the Agena from the Agena and the Gemini. So I think I might try to finish this orbit. Let's see, what would the match velocities at closest approach? 137.4 meters per second, which I'm not sure that this actually has, but I'm pretty sure that the Gemini does have. So let's switch back to the Gemini and make another plan. Okay, so we can match velocities at closest approach. We have 138 meters per second to burn, and we have 186 packed onto here. So just look in the direction of the target and see that we have about 10 minutes until it gets close enough for us to actually, be close. So, and this is going to be about a 5-minute burn. So I actually want to start about 5 minutes early so that we end, ideally, right when it is on top of us. So that was what I did wrong last time. I executed the node as if it was, half in front of the node, half behind it, but we really need to do it almost all in front of the node, and hopefully that will work a little bit better than what we have done previously. So let's go ahead and start the burn. Yeah, we can see that it is approaching. It's going to be here in about 5-6 minutes. It's actually, that number is getting larger, so we can cease and let it approach a little bit, and we will just continue to just get a little bit closer each time. Okay, so 3 minutes away, we have ignited the engines one more time. And it shifts position dramatically when I do physical time warp. Whoops, and we are also falling off of our node, which is making our approach a little bit worse. Here, I can actually fix that probably. Well, anyways, let's just get there without stressing too much about that. Because once we are within a kilometer, then we can actually move around in a way, like we'll be in an orbit that is similar enough that small manipulations like that will not cause too much trouble. And I've adjusted my burn so that I can push my retrograde marker closer to the vessel. So while we are also burning and shedding velocity, we are reducing our separation at closest approach just slightly, so that hopefully by the time it gets here, we will be there. All right, getting real close now. We are only 13 meters per second in relative velocity, so let's just turn off that node, and we can just relative velocity negative, and we are going to be very soon about 72 meters away. All right, about 300 meters away now. I am reducing our velocity relative to the target much as I possibly can, because we are here. 4 meters, 2 meters, 0 meters per second relative velocity. Stop, good lord. All right, so that is that. We have rendezvoused within 150 meters of our Agena target vehicle. How long is it till we actually have sunlight? About a quarter of an orbit. All right, so just a tiny amount of adjustment to have yet another time until closest approach that is going to meet around when we should have sunlight. And there we go. So now we can actually dock in the sun. All right, so as we get real close, now it's time to see if our... I installed a navball docking indicator, but I'm not sure it's actually working. Because that should be... I should be at least close enough to see it if it was working. All right, so I guess we're doing this docking completely manually, which is not how I would choose to do it. But the tool that I had chosen for it is not actually working. I wonder if I use an autopilot. I just want like... the target docking port. Docking port. Set as target. There we go. All right. Okay. So it does work just fine. Don't need any autopilots or nothing. Close maneuver node and this. And now we just need to point ourselves down the barrel of the docking node. So now we are ready for that. And now it's a matter of adjusting our velocity and orientation so that we are meeting up properly. Free camera here. It looks like I'm just about correct. Hill rotation. Okay. Up a little bit and to the side. All right, we are just about there. A little rotated off. And so now we can see what the actual astronauts would have seen. Man, should I just do this from in here? Because that's what this this little the index key, they called it, the indexing key. That's what that was used for, was to make sure that they were pointed in the correct direction. All right, so a little bit of forward velocity here, and we are approaching at 0.16 meters per second. We are looking good so far. Half ball. Is there a half ball in here? Not. We are slowing it on down, and I am just coming in, and I have never, ever docked quite like this before. But it looks like we're pretty good. We're coming in slow enough that this should be all right. All right, indexing key is right on the money. Ka-chunk! We've done it! We have docked in the orbit of Earth. Contract complete. The first docking. We have achieved a hard lock. That is fantastic. So there we go. That is the first part of this mission is complete. We have docking. Fabulous. So that is going to allow us to do all kinds of cool stuff. Like this this ability, like I might have to change what mod I use because I really like the Navyfish docking port alignment indicator, but I think it hasn't been updated since 1.0. So yeah, this is going to allow us to do all kinds of cool stuff now that we have proven out the ability of that we have to dock. So before we do anything else, I wish we could EVA, but I didn't bring the nitrogen. That's my bad, so we're going to skip that for now. But we do need to orbit for another 36 hours before we can change our orbit. So let's start planning for that. But the final execution of this mission is going to have to wait until next time because I am just out of time. Not going to be able to quite fit all of this into one episode because apparently, looking back upon it, I spent a tremendous amount of time faffing about in orbit with the Gemini. So speaking now from a point where I have done some work on my next Gemini mission for the recording that, I do better next time. So look forward to that. But for now, I'm going to leave you with this. And yeah, so if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Tell your friends, and I will see you next time.